Welcome to my Sitecore Diaries. So this is the fourth part of a Sitecore 10 .NET Developer Certification Exam preparation series, and this is the third question set. So for the basic competency, the basic competency question set was too large, so I have divided into the four parts. So this is the third part. Okay, there is one more part where we will have a Sitecore basic competency question set, and then we will start with a SP.NET SP.NET Core renderings, headless containers, and the serialization. Okay, so I'm Jitendra Ghanekar. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Please click on a bell icon to get a latest update. And if you like my videos, please click on a like button. Please share it with others, and please provide your feedback by commenting on it. So let's start. Today's first question. Why should you not add presentation details on every new content item? Use standard values of a template, because every item based on this template will have the same layout. So if you add it on the standard values, it will be inherited every item. So you do not have to make changes on the every item. The customer wants to temporarily change the layout of the home page. Which feature of the Sitecore should make this possible? So he just wanted temporary changes in the home page. Which feature he should use? He should use a version layout. He should create a layouts version. Then you can do it for a temporary purpose. A new Sitecore developer says they want to start to build out the general structure of the render appearance of the web page. So they want to build the scaffolding. So it must be described the layout. What is mandatory for a presentation details? A layout. So without a layout, you can't have the presentation details. What do you at least need to create a layout? So if you want to create a layout, what are the minimum things which are required? First is a .chtml file, and second is a layout item. So layout item is basically the site layout definition item in the Sitecore. If you create a page from a template that has a layout set on the standard value, the new page you create will inherit that layout. So this is the same first question which we have discussed. Describe the anatomy of a Sitecore layout. A code file on the file system and the definition item in the content tree. So what is Sitecore layout? Basically a HTML file and the layout definition. How is the layout file linked to the definition item? By the path field of the definition item. So in the definition item, we provide the path which will link to the layout file. What is the difference between shared and the final layout? Shared layout is a control which is added in the shared layout is a shared in all languages and numbered version. Final layout is a changes which is made in the final layout are specific to the language and version. So in one of our video, we have already explained the difference between shared and final layout. So I will be sharing that link in the description. You can have a look on if you want to on the detail of this. What happens when you request a page that has a no layout defined in the presentation details? If there is no layout, what will happen? Sitecore will show the layout not found error page. So it will show an error page with a layout not found. Can you edit an item in the experience editor when the item has a no presentation details set? So if there is no presentation details set, you cannot edit that, because it cannot be presented in the experience editor. So how can you edit it? So no, we can't edit it. How do you address a placeholder? By using a placeholder key. So placeholder key is a unique key from which we address the placeholder. How do you specify a static component in the HTML file? Static component can be specified, like if you want to render statically, then you use html.sitecore.renderings and then the path or ID of the of that page. How will you render the content of a single line text field called title? How will you render the content of the single line text field called title? So if you want to render a title field, how will you do that? At html.sitecore.fill title. What is the advantage of using components? So why we should be using the component? The components are the reusable part, right? So your presentation artifact has a more reusable component, so that will help you to utilize that at multiple places. You want to ensure a header and footer are always visible on main layout. Okay, so they should be always visible. Will you statically or dynamically bind it? So you do not want any other user or authors to remove those, so then in that case you have to use a static bind. When you need it, always appear on the layout of rendering. What must you do to ensure a controller rendering can be inserted into the placeholder on your site page? Add the controller rendering to the placeholder settings of the placeholder. Okay. What is the purpose of a dynamic placeholder? Why you want to use a dynamic placeholder? To apply the same placeholder multiple times with a different renderings in it. So in our one of our video on the placeholders, I have given the detailed explanation why we need the dynamic placeholder. So again, I will be sharing that link so you can have a look on that. In Sitecore MVC, how do you make a field non-editable? You do not want a field to be editable. Then what you have to do is you have to make the disable web edit property. Disable web edit property true. Then that field will become non-editable. Next question. In code, a placeholder is defined, but when the experience editor is used, the placeholder is not visible. What is the most likely the cause? So in the code, you mean in the layout, the placeholder is there, but when you use the experience editor, it is not visible. So main the reason will be placeholder settings are missing. So placeholder settings items has to be created, and placeholder should be added to the presentation details. So these are the two reasons why it is not visible, because there may not be having the placeholder setting. How to optimize the process for an author to prevent removing rendering if they just want to switch the view of a component. How to optimize the process for an author to prevent removing renderings if they just want to switch of the component. They can use the compatible rendering. So in the compatible rendering, you can specify which are the renderings which are compatible to each other. How do you creates a component that cannot be edited in the experience editor? Use a static component binding. If you use a static component binding, it will not be edited in the experience editor. What do you need to create when you have a view rendering? A razor view. If you want to have a reusable elements in your layout, what kind of a view should you create? You have a reusable element, then you have to use the partial views. So these are the few links which I will be sharing. At the end also I will be giving those links, and in the description also I will be providing. So basically whatever question which currently we have seen, it is more related to placeholder and presentation details. Next question. Which DLL relates to presentation? Which DLL is required to get a rendering contest? So it's sitecore.mvc.dll. How do you have access to the HTTP request properties? So it is basically your Sitecore context.request. It will give you all the details about the HTTP request property. What are the sum of the properties that are available in the Sitecore context class? So what are the properties which are available in the Sitecore context class? Sitecore context, you have a user, database information, and the language information. How will you display the direct children of a home item? If you want to get the direct children of a home item, by retrieving the home item using the sitecore.context.site.start path, that will give you the home item, and then if you call the get children method, it will provide you all the children of a home item. What is the danger of using a method like access.getDescendant? So it retrieves recursively all the children of all the children. So if invoke an item near the root, so at the home level or content level, if you run this query, then it will load entire tree which will be in the memory and which will have a performance impact. How do you get the children items of an item? There are two ways we can get a children's item of an item. First is the dot children method and another is the get children method. What is the difference between get children versus get descendant? So get children returns all the direct children of an item, whereas item.get descendant returns all the items under an item. How can you populate the property of a view model and still support a inline editing in the EE? If you use a field render method, then you can do that. How do you put an item into an editing state? So if you want to start if you want to edit the item, then you have to create an edit context. What method do you invoke when you begin and finish editing an item through an API? When you begin an item, you have to write .editing.begin edit, and if you finish it, if you want to save it, then .editing.end edit. Why would you preferably avoid sorting items in the code, for example using link queue? Because it will confuse the user. If you sort into the code and if you show it into the content editor different way, it will confuse user whether whether the item which he has added will be there or not. How can you skip certain items when you build the navigation? If you want to skip an item, you can use a link. Okay, you can filter the template and or the value depending on whatever your logic. You can filter it. Okay, by using the link query. Dictionary functionality is used to create a key phrases pairs that can be used globally across your website. So you have a key phrase functionality, then you should go with a dictionary. How can you run part of your code with a set of a privilege different from those of a context user? So whatever the privilege with the context user is running, if you want to run the code with the different user, then how can you do that? So there are two methods which we can do. First is the user switcher, where you switch the user completely, and another is the security disabler, where you disable the security and user will act as an admin. What two core services confirm the Sitecore service client? Okay, so what are the two service client? First is the item service, which gives you the regular Sitecore item. Another is the entity service, which gives you the business object. What is an item bucket? So what is bucket? A container that allows you to hide innumerable items within while still being easily retrievable. So if there are a lot of items, then you use a bucket where it will hide the those items are hide in the content tree. How you find items in the bucket? By using the content search API. You can use the content search API to get the item in the bucket. Why will an item show in the content tree even though it is a child of a bucketed item? It is not a bucketable, so it is not set as a bucketable. That's why it is showing as a in the tree, even though that tree is bucketed. Okay. Next question. What part of a Sitecore is in charge of generating URLs? So how does the URLs get generated? Which module generates the URLs? It is the link manager. Where can you customize how URLs are rendered globally? How can you customize how URLs are rendered globally? So link manager, which is a section of the web.config. So in the web.config, you have a link manager section where you can define your URLs globally, URL structure globally. How can you get Sitecore to produce a translated URLs? So translated URL means like you have a English and French. So for the SEO purpose, you should have the French URLs also. So that can be done by using the display name. So you can have items display name in the link manager setting. If you specify like a use display name, then it will use the display name for the URLs. Display name, you can change the name for a translated item. A translated item won't translate itself. You have to give it a name. So say you have an item like XYZ name, and then that is in English. You want a different name in the FR, so you have to give it a display name, and that is not automated translation. You have to give that name manually. Why is it important to have a friendly structure within your content tree? because in the whatever structure you have a content tree that defines your URLs, and for a user friendly for a SEO purpose you should have a proper URL. So that is the reason you should have a friendly structure within your content tree. In which situation will you want to change the links that are generated for an individual links? So if you need to force a language of a content that is to be rendered from Sitecore, then you have to do this. How can you globally change the characters in the URL that are generated from and resolved from Sitecore? So there is a property called encode name replacement. Okay, so that if that you can use in the web.config to do so. How will you disable .xpace being added to the URLs that are generated from the Sitecore? So when you have a URL, you will see the item .axpace. So whatever your item name .axpace. So if that axpace you want to remove, how can you do that? You can do that by adding a add axpace extension attribute to of the link manager. So it is managed by the link manager with the property add axpace extension. How will an author cause a broken link when the renaming an item? The URL is usually made using the item names. Okay, if the page was bookmarked in the browser, it will no longer work and you will need to implement 301 redirect logic. So as you know, in the Sitecore, the URLs are the replica or the same as a content structure, and there you have an item name. Okay, if you change that item name, that means your URL is also changed, and if that URL is bookmark, so previous URL is a bookmark, when user try to access that, it will give you the 301. So sorry, it will give you 404. So page not found. So then you, in that case, you have to write a 301 redirect also if you are changing the item name. Okay, for the caching, we will have a next section is of a caching. So generally in the caching you have this kind of a structure. Okay, so first of all, when the user accesses, it will give it to the HTML cache. So these are the Sitecore cache layer. So first layer is the HTML cache. So if you have a data in the HTML cache, user pick from the HTML cache. If not, then it goes to the data cache. Then you have a item cache. Then you have a pre-page cache. Pre-page cache, if it is the last layer, okay, then it will pick the data from the DB. So once you get the data from the DB, again it will fill the pre-page, then item, then data, and then HTML. That is how it is structured. Okay, we will have a separate video on the caching. So this is a high level caching thing. We will see the what are the questions from the caching. The first thing is the how will you access the cache page, like admin/cache.axpace, and what is the default size of a cache? It is 25 MB. Why should you never cache a component that displays personal information? If your component is displaying the personal information, PI information, then why should you should not be using the cache? Because that when you cache that information, it can be viewed by any other user also. So that is why you should not be caching it. So another visitor to see site can see that information. Which of the following commands is used to enable the caching for a site? So caching is done by cache HTML is equal to true. What kind of information is stored in the pre-page cache in the Sitecore? So this pre-page cache, what it does, it stored. So item that Sitecore will need to access during and just after initialization of an instance. So when your Sitecore instance starts, that time what are the items which are required, that will be stored in the pre-page cache. So when you define a pre-page cache, you have to identify what are the items it should cache it at the start of the application. Okay, if you provide a lot of items, then it will take a lot of time to start. So that instance will take a lot of time to start. Why would your team decide to disable the pre-page cache in Sitecore solution? The cycle of continuous caching and pre-page caching too many items will increase the load on the SQL server, and which will degrade the startup time of your application. As I just now I explained you, if you have a lot of items, then it will create a problem at the start of your application. The renderings on a page layout can be cached individually or as a group at the layout level. So you can cache the renderings individually. So individually you can cache it, or you can do it at the layout level. The next question is, you have a component you would like to cache anywhere it is used. So where will you define it cache setting? So you have a component you would like to cache anywhere it is used. Where will you define its cache setting? So component should be cached wherever it is used. So it should be defined in the component definition item. So cache setting should be defined at the component definition item. You have a component that you want cached on every event details page. Where will you define in its cache setting? What it is saying is that if you use that component in the event details, then only it should cache, otherwise it should not be caching. So you should be applying the cache. You should apply the cache on the event details template page. So these are the questions. Let's see the URLs. So these are the reference URL, and I will be posting this on the in the descriptions. So these we have seen the placeholders. So these are the some of the YouTube links, and then a few of the blog links. Then we have seen the presentation details. Then we have seen the question from the caching. Then we have seen questions from the link manager also. There are other questions also, but majorly we have seen these competencies questions in this video. So if you have any question, then you can connect to me on my Gmail ID. This is my LinkedIn ID. If you like my video, please click on the like button. Please share this with your friends. Provide your feedback by providing the comment. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Click on a bell icon to get the latest update from my Sitecore Diaries. Thank you. Thanks for watching.